You ever wake up thinking it's just another ordinary day, only to have your entire world flipped upside down? That's exactly what happened to me last week, and let me tell you, I never thought I'd end up practically battling for my own driveway at my age. My name's Jack. I'm 60 years old, and I've spent most of my life working on cars. I run a small auto repair shop just outside of town, so you'd think nobody would mess with an old mechanic like me. But wow, was I wrong. I've been working 12-hour days lately. Business has been booming, and as much as I appreciate the income, my body isn't what it used to be. My back aches from leaning over engines all day, and my hands are so calloused I can't even feel a paper cut. So when I finally drag myself home, I just want peace and quiet. Maybe a cold drink, a comfortable couch, and some well-deserved rest. But life had other plans. One morning, after an especially long shift at the shop, I pulled into my neighborhood. I was daydreaming about a hot shower and maybe a quick nap. But then, my foot slammed on the brake as soon as I saw it. A strange SUV, parked squarely in my driveway as though it was the most natural thing in the world. At first, I honestly thought I was in the wrong place, or maybe there was an emergency. Why else would somebody park in my driveway? But I didn't see any flashing lights or frantic people. All I saw was an SUV with tinted windows, a big scratch on the side, and absolutely no note or explanation. Call to action. Hey folks, if you're just joining my story, please take a second to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what kind of car you drive. I'm a mechanic, so I love hearing about people's vehicles. Trust me, your support really helps this channel grow and brings you more unbelievable HOA tales like this one. So there I stood, scratching my head. The street parking in our neighborhood is pretty limited, but that doesn't give anyone the right to claim someone else's driveway, especially not an old-timer mechanic who just wanted to relax. That day, I let it slide. I left a polite note on the windshield saying, "Hey, please don't park here again. This is private property, thank you." Little did I know that was just the beginning of a wild showdown with a woman I'd only heard stories about, Karen, the new HOA president, who was about to take neighborhood drama to a whole new level. I came home the next day hoping that SUV would be gone. To my relief, my driveway was empty. I sighed, feeling a little silly for getting so worked up. Maybe it was just an honest mistake. But as soon as I stepped out of my truck, I noticed my polite note crumpled in the bushes. No explanation, no apology, just tossed aside like trash. That was my first hint this wasn't just a simple misunderstanding. The following morning, I woke up early with plans to run to the store for a few parts. I opened my front door, and wouldn't you know it, the SUV was back, parked right across the middle of my driveway, again. A fresh wave of frustration crashed over me. I was tired, I had places to be, and I couldn't keep playing hide-and-seek with someone's vehicle. I wrote a second note. This time I was firmer, but still polite. "This is private property, and you're blocking my driveway. Final warning, do not park here again." I left it on the windshield, but deep down I felt things were about to escalate. In my 60 years on this earth, I've learned to trust my gut feeling, and my gut was telling me trouble was brewing. Sure enough, that SUV came back the very next day. I was outside, pacing in front of the SUV, debating whether I could legally have it towed without creating a nuclear fallout. That's when I saw a figure emerging from the house across the street. Karen, tall, sharp features, and that signature angled blonde bob. She looked exactly how neighbors had described her. A walking storm cloud with a scowl etched on her face. She stomped over, eyes locked on me like she was about to issue a court summons. "What do you think you're doing near my car?" she snapped. I blinked, taken aback. "Your car? So you're the owner of this SUV?" "Yes," she hissed. "Street parking here is awful, so I use your driveway sometimes. It's not like you're using it 24/7." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Ma'am, this is private property, and you've ignored multiple notes. I'm an older guy with a bad back, and I need my driveway for my own vehicles. Plus, Karen cut me off with a roll of her eyes. "Oh, please, you're not that old. You can park on the street like everyone else. Besides, I'm the HOA president. If you have a problem, you can file a complaint, but don't expect me to care." I was stunned. "Excuse me? The HOA doesn't give you the right to park on my property." She smirked. "Maybe not, but it sure makes things easier for me. And if you want me gone, you'll have to do more than scribble on a piece of paper." With that, she hopped into her SUV and sped off, leaving me standing there feeling like I'd just been sucker punched. A few days went by without any sign of Karen's SUV, and I almost believed she'd back down. During that time, I tried to focus on my shop. We'd gotten a couple of tricky engine rebuilds, and my apprentice needed guidance. My hands stayed busy, but my mind kept drifting back to my driveway fiasco. Something told me it wasn't over. By the end of the week, my hunch proved correct. One evening, I pulled into my street after a long day hunched over a pickup truck's engine. I was exhausted, my knees popped with every step, and my back felt like it was on fire. And there it was, Karen's SUV, angled so aggressively across my driveway that I couldn't pull in. She even blocked the small ramp I'd built for easier access to my front door, in case my friends or family with mobility issues came over. I stared in disbelief, anger flooding through me. This wasn't just about parking anymore. It was a blatant disregard for my property rights and my personal comfort. I stomped across the street to confront her. When she opened the door, her face was a mask of annoyance. "You again? You're blocking my driveway and my access ramp," I said, doing my best not to raise my voice. "I need you to move, now." She sighed dramatically, like I was asking her to climb Mount Everest. "Fine, but understand, as HOA president, I can make your life very difficult if you keep this up." I didn't respond. There was no point. She slammed the door, and moments later, she moved her SUV. I stood in my driveway, staring at the oil stains her car left behind, furious and defeated all at once. The next morning, I was sipping my coffee when I noticed some commotion by my mailbox. I peered out the window, and sure enough, there was Karen attaching a bright pink notice to my mailbox. I hurried outside, heart pounding. The notice read, "HOA violation, hazardous materials on driveway, oil stains. Must be cleaned within 1 week or fines will apply." I felt my blood pressure spike. "You can't fine me for oil stains that your SUV caused." I held up the pink paper in disbelief. Karen gave me a condescending shrug. "It's your driveway. If you fail to maintain it, the HOA can issue fines. End of story." I wanted to argue more, but she turned on her heel and marched off. The nerve. I was stuck with her mess, and she acted like I was the criminal. That was the moment I decided. Enough was enough. If she parked in my driveway again, I'd call a tow truck without warning. Before doing anything rash, I contacted an old friend named Dan. He was a lawyer specializing in property disputes. After I told him the whole story, he practically burst out laughing. "You have every right to tow her car," he said. "The HOA can't override private property laws. If she's parking in your driveway without permission, that's trespassing. Document everything, photos, times, anything you can get." Knowing I had a legal green light gave me a sense of relief. I'd never been a confrontational person, but Karen had pushed me to the edge. I wasn't about to let some power-hungry HOA president walk all over me. It didn't take long for Karen to test my resolve. A few days later, I pulled onto my street and saw her SUV sprawled across my driveway once again. My back ached from the day's work, and my patience had worn thin. Enough was enough. I snapped photos of the SUV as proof. Then I called the local tow company. "Yes, I need a vehicle removed from my driveway. It's unauthorized and blocking my property." The tow truck arrived quicker than I expected. Seeing that big rig hook up Karen's SUV made my heart pound. I was doing what I had to do, but I still felt a swirl of nerves. Within 20 minutes, the SUV was gone, and my driveway was finally clear. That evening, I half expected Karen to come storming over, but there was only silence. For the first time in weeks, I slept like a baby, thinking maybe, just maybe, Karen had learned her lesson. I was wrong. The next day, I heard frantic pounding on my door. I opened it to find Karen, her face twisted with rage, her phone clutched so tightly her knuckles were white. "You towed my SUV? How dare you?" she shrieked. I didn't flinch. "Yes, I did. You parked in my driveway again. I warned you." Her eyes widened, fury radiating off her. "That was illegal. I'm the HOA president, and you stole my car." I crossed my arms. "Towing a trespassing vehicle isn't theft. It's called protecting my private property." She jabbed a finger at me, practically shaking. "I'm calling the police. This is harassment." I shrugged. "Go ahead. I'm not stopping you." When the police arrived, Karen launched into a dramatic rant about how I was targeting her, how I stole her SUV, how I was making her life a living nightmare. The officers listened, then turned to me. I calmly showed them the photos and explained the situation. One officer sighed and turned to Karen. Ma'am, he's within his rights to tow a vehicle parked on his property without permission. HOA rules don't override state law. There's no crime here. Karen's face went pale. Then she exploded. You're taking his side? I'm the HOA president, and I say he has no right to move my car without my approval. Her voice rose to a piercing shriek. Do you have any idea what I can do to him with HOA fines? The officer shook his head. Ma'am, threats won't help your case. Let's keep this civil. Furious, Karen finally realized she was outmatched. She stomped off, shouting something about how I'd regret this day forever. I exhaled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. For about a week, Karen left me alone. My driveway stayed blessedly free of her SUV, and I started to think that maybe we'd reached a stalemate. I threw myself back into work, tuning engines, swapping transmissions, doing the stuff I loved. My customers appreciated my years of experience, and for a short while, life felt normal again. But if there's one thing I've learned in 60 years, it's that peace never lasts when someone like Karen is involved. Sure enough, on a bright Saturday morning, I stepped outside and froze in disbelief. Not only was Karen's SUV back, she'd also parked a second car, a small sedan, directly behind it, boxing me in completely. The nerve of this woman! I marched over to the vehicles, checking for any note or sign of explanation. Nothing. I glanced at my watch. I had an important errand in an hour, plus a friend who needed me to look at his busted radiator. I couldn't afford to be blocked in. I knocked on Karen's door. No answer. I called out her name. Silence. For all I knew, she was hiding in there just to provoke me. Enough was enough. I snapped new photos and called the tow company again, explaining the absurd situation. Half an hour later, 2 tow trucks arrived. The drivers almost laughed at how blatantly these cars were parked in my driveway. They hooked up both vehicles and drove away. Problem solved, right? Well, it was solved for about 2 hours. Then came the meltdown. I was back inside, drinking water and massaging the kink in my lower back, when I heard screeching tires. Karen came flying up the driveway, eyes locked on the empty space where her cars used to be. She rushed to my door, pounding so hard I thought she might break the frame. When I opened it, she tried to lunge at me, but I took a step back. "Where are my cars? You towed both of them!" she screamed. I nodded. "You blocked my driveway with 2 vehicles. You left me no choice." Her face flushed. I have a heart condition. You put me under so much stress. Oh! She clutched at her chest, stumbling backward as though she were about to faint. "I'm going to collapse right here." At first, I panicked. I'm not a medical professional, but I know enough to take chest pains seriously. I rushed forward, concern overriding my anger. "Ma'am, are you okay? Should I call 911? But just then, a neighbor walked up from behind Karen, and she seemed to magically recover. In the blink of an eye, she stood up straight, glaring at us. No shortness of breath, no collapse, nothing. "Are you faking a heart attack?" the neighbor asked incredulously. Karen sneered. "Of course not. I really did feel faint. It's just, I'm so shocked by his cruelty." She raised her voice, trying to gather sympathy from anyone who would listen, but the neighbor rolled his eyes, and I felt my jaw clench. "I think you're fine," I said flatly. "If you were truly in distress, I would have called for help. But it seems you're feeling better now." She pointed a shaking finger at me. You'll pay for this. You have no heart." And with that, she stomped back across the street, her so-called heart attack completely forgotten the moment it didn't serve her agenda anymore. That afternoon, I heard a strange clinking sound outside. Peeking through the window, I saw Karen back in my driveway, furiously working with a thick metal chain. I stepped onto my porch just in time to see her wrapping the chain around her SUV's rear bumper and securing the other end to my neighbor Mr. Patterson's fence. "Let's see you tow it now, Jack," she smirked, crossing her arms like she just outsmarted the entire legal system. I blinked. "Karen, you just chained your car to someone else's fence." Before she could respond, Patterson's door slammed open. He was pushing 80 but still built like a damn oak tree. With a massive coffee mug in one hand and a scowl in the other, he barked, "What the hell are you doing to my fence?" Karen immediately switched tactics. "Oh, Mr. Patterson, I was just, preventing a crime." Patterson's glare deepened. "So, let me get this straight. You parked on his property and chained your damn car to my fence?" Karen's confidence wavered. "Well, yes, but—" "Unchain it, now," Karen scoffed. "Or what? You'll write me a strongly worded letter?" I nearly choked. Did she just threaten a Vietnam vet? Patterson sipped his coffee, deadpan. Lady, I survived a war. You think I won't take bolt cutters to that thing? Karen paled. Realizing she was outmatched, she hurriedly fumbled with the chain, but in her panic, she yanked too hard. Crack! Her entire rear bumper snapped clean off. A beat of silence. Then I lost it. I was laughing so hard I could barely breathe. Even Patterson wheezed out a chuckle. Karen, on the other hand, was horrified. She stared at the detached bumper like it had betrayed her. Then, with wild desperation, she pointed at me. "This is your fault!" she shrieked. I wiped a tear from my eye. "Oh yeah, Karen, totally. I used my mind powers to make you rip off your own bumper," Patterson sighed. "Lady, if you don't get your busted-up SUV and crazy ass off my property in the next minute, I'm calling the cops." Karen let out an incoherent screech, hopped into her now bumperless SUV, and sped off, dragging the loose chain behind her like a tail. It clanked down the street for at least 2 blocks. A few days later, just when I thought I'd seen it all, Karen took her antics to a new level. I came home to find her lying flat on her back, under my car, with a handmade sign reading, "On strike against harassment." She was literally blocking me from moving my own vehicle. I stood there, jaw hanging open. "Karen, what on earth are you doing under my car?" She peeked out, huffing. "I'm protesting. You keep towing my vehicles, so now I'm making sure you can't drive yours. This is a peaceful demonstration." I looked around, noticing a few neighbors peeking out their windows, probably filming this bizarre spectacle. "You're trespassing on my property again. I'm asking you to leave." She stayed put, arms folded defiantly across her chest. "I have a right to protest. This is a free country." I rubbed the bridge of my nose, exhaustion washing over me. I didn't want to call the cops again, but she left me no choice. After I dialed, it took about 15 minutes for an officer to arrive. He stared at the scene with a look that said, "I've seen everything now." "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you need to get out from under that vehicle. You're trespassing and creating a dangerous situation." Karen refused, so the officer had to threaten arrest for disorderly conduct and trespassing. That finally got her to wiggle out from under my car. She dusted herself off, glared daggers at me, and started spewing accusations about how I was oppressing her freedoms and endangering her safety. The officer gave her a final warning. If she ever did something like this again, she'd be in serious legal trouble. She stomped off, shouting, "This isn't over, Jack. I'll get you at the next HOA meeting." After Karen's theatrical strike, I was more than ready to see her face on a neighborhood watch poster labeled, "Warning, do not approach." But the surprise came 2 days later when I got a call from Dan, my lawyer friend. "Jack, you won't believe this," he said. "I've been looking into your HOA's bylaws. Karen isn't even allowed to be president right now. She missed a mandatory board meeting 3 months ago, which should have disqualified her from the position." I nearly dropped the phone. "You're kidding me." "Nope. The rest of the HOA board is in disarray. Most of them didn't realize they needed a formal vote to confirm her position. She basically declared herself president." A wave of relief and amusement washed over me. That explained a lot. Karen was never officially in charge. She'd been using the HOA name to bully neighbors without any legal authority. As soon as word got out, the real HOA board members stepped in. Karen was stripped of any supposed presidential powers, her threats of fines were voided, and the board issued a formal apology to me and a few others she had harassed. Karen didn't take the news well. She tried to hold an emergency neighborhood meeting in her front yard, ranting about conspiracy theories and sabotage, but hardly anyone showed up. By then, the entire community saw her for who she was, a troublemaker who preyed on other people's patience and goodwill. And that, folks, is the end of this insane story, at least for now. Who knows what Karen will try next? If you enjoyed this tale, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to leave a comment about the kind of car you drive. I'm always curious to hear about your rides, and it really helps our community grow. Thank you for sticking with me through this wild ride. Until next time, take care of yourselves, especially if you have a Karen next door. And remember, you own your property, not the HOA.